The broadcast was sent, but the words were not for surrender. Instead, they were filled with defiance, echoing through the vast silence of space. Humanity had been cornered by the Galactic Council, the mighty technologically advanced alliance of alien species that had controlled the galaxy for centuries. Their ultimatum had been simple. Earth was to submit to their will or face total destruction. The Council's weapons were unmatched, their fleets powerful beyond comprehension, and their reach was as vast as the stars themselves. Yet, as the countdown to Earth's doom began, something happened that the Council had not expected, something they could not control. The message that went out wasn't the plea for mercy they were used to hearing. It was a challenge. As the deadly force of the Council's fleet drew closer, humanity's leaders gathered in the underground bunkers, trying to formulate a plan, but hope was dim. Earth had no allies, no powerful weapons, and the Council's might was overwhelming. Everyone believed that humanity's fight for survival was over. Every planet in the galaxy knew that Earth was the final frontier, the last unclaimed territory, and the Council was determined to erase this threat to their domination. But then, a hum, almost imperceptible, filled the room. A signal, intercepted from deep space, buzzed through the quiet of Earth's communication center. It was a human transmission. At first, it seemed like a glitch, another desperate plea for help or a distorted message. But when the noise cleared, the words became crystal clear. The voice was calm, collected, and utterly unafraid. It was Captain Adrian Cross, a man who had once served as an officer in Earth's military forces before the war began. His voice rang out, not with desperation, but with a quiet confidence that sent chills down the spines of those who listened. To the Galactic Council, we are not your prey. We will not bow to your power. We will fight for our survival, for our freedom, and we will make you regret underestimating us. The message was simple, but its weight was immense. The arrogance of the Council, who had seen humanity as nothing more than an insect under their boot, suddenly felt uncertain. They had no idea how this message was sent, or who had managed to bypass their tightly controlled communications network. The Council's leadership, a collection of ancient species and cold, calculating artificial intelligences, listened to the transmission in disbelief. They had assumed Earth would fold under the pressure, that humanity's frailty and lack of advanced technology would make it an easy conquest. They had underestimated the resolve of the human race. But more importantly, they had underestimated the ingenuity of humanity's greatest minds. Captain Cross had been working in secret, assembling a team and researching technologies that had once seemed impossible. Against all odds, humanity had begun to level the playing field. What the Council didn't know was that their overconfidence would be their downfall. As the Council debated what to do, Cross and his team were already preparing for their next move. The message was not just a statement, it was a warning. Earth had been preparing for this moment for years, hiding its advancements, its plans, and its true potential. While the Council was too focused on their own empire to notice, humanity had been slowly developing technology that could change everything. From stealth ships that could cloak and disappear from the most sophisticated sensors, to AI drones that could outthink and outfight the most advanced alien machines, humanity was ready to fight back. But it wasn't just technology that they had at their disposal. They had something that the Council could never understand: resilience. Earth had endured countless wars, invasions, and struggles, and every time it rose again. They had faced extinction before and survived. This was no different. Cross's message spread like wildfire, not just across Earth, but throughout the galaxy. It was a rallying cry, one that would stir the hearts of those oppressed by the Council. Rebel factions on distant planets began to organize, sensing an opportunity for freedom. For the first time in years, the Galactic Council's dominance was being challenged. The arrogance of their rule was being questioned by the very species they had thought to crush beneath their feet. The Council, with all their power and might, had never imagined a world like Earth, one that refused to be controlled. As the message ended, a silent pause filled the air. The leaders of Earth held their breath, unsure of what would come next. The Council's response was swift and brutal. An enormous fleet of warships, each larger and more deadly than any Earth vessel, began to move toward Earth's atmosphere. The countdown to invasion had begun. But despite the odds, Captain Cross felt a glimmer of hope. They had no way of knowing whether Earth would survive the coming storm, but they had one advantage. The Council was now vulnerable. They had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity. The next few minutes were filled with frantic preparations. The world's best minds, engineers and soldiers, gathered in secret to execute the most dangerous plan ever conceived. Cross and his team had a single goal: to disrupt the Council's fleet, to show them that humanity wasn't to be underestimated. They knew it was their only shot at survival, but the cost of failure would be high. There was no turning back once they began. As the first ships entered Earth's orbit, cloaked in the depths of space, the tension was palpable. The broadcast had ignited a spark, but would humanity be able to sustain it? Captain Cross had rallied the forces of Earth, but now they had to prove that they were capable of standing up to the alien empire that had ruled the galaxy for so long. The fate of Earth rested in the hands of a few brave souls who were about to face a fight unlike any they had ever imagined. This was just the beginning. The fight for humanity's freedom had begun, and the Council would learn the hard way that they had made a grave mistake. They had awoken a force that even their vast power could not control, and humanity was about to show them exactly what it meant to be underestimated. The message from Captain Adrian Cross had ignited a spark across Earth, but now it was time for the flames of that spark to grow into something unstoppable. Humanity's survival depended on those who were willing to stand up, despite the overwhelming odds. The Galactic Council's fleet was approaching, their vast warships ready to obliterate the last remaining human strongholds. The pressure was unbearable, but in the face of certain doom, something incredible began to happen. Ordinary people, those who had once thought of themselves as powerless, began to rally together. The underdogs, the overlooked, the ones the Council had never feared, were ready to take a stand. In the underground bunkers, the world's top strategists and military leaders gathered, but they knew they needed more. They needed the average citizens, the workers, the farmers, and the engineers, those who had once been dismissed by the elites as nothing more than pawns. And now, they were the only hope Earth had. They didn't have the advanced technology or the vast resources the Council had at their disposal, but they had something that the Council could never understand: determination and a refusal to surrender. Among those answering the call was Mark Bones McGrath, a former soldier who had lost his leg in the first wave of the war. Bones had been left behind by the military, considered a casualty of the past. He was no longer fit for battle, or so they had thought. His prosthetic leg may have slowed him down, but it didn't take away his heart, nor did it diminish his thirst for revenge. His experience in the field, his ability to think on his feet, and his fierce loyalty to his people made him invaluable. He wasn't alone. There was Sarah Clark, a scientist who had once been regarded as an eccentric inventor. Her work had always been ahead of its time, dismissed by the mainstream as impractical, even outlandish. But when Earth's military began scrambling for anything that could give them an advantage, it was Sarah's unconventional ideas that were suddenly in demand. She had been working on a cloaking device for years, long before the war with the Galactic Council had begun. And now her technology was the key to humanity's survival. The thought of using her invention to turn the tide of war was overwhelming, but Sarah had never been one to shy away from a challenge. Then there was Elias Chung, a former tech hacker who had once been arrested for breaking into secure government systems. He was a genius, but his skills had often been used for personal gain rather than for the greater good. Now, with Earth's communications in chaos and the Council's cyber warfare systems attacking from all angles, Elias found himself once again on the front lines. He wasn't just fixing the problem. He was learning to fight back, using his talents to hack into the Council's systems, disrupt their operations, and give humanity the slightest edge in the coming battle. These were just a few of the faces of Earth's resistance. The true strength of humanity lay not in the generals or the commanders, but in the people who had been told they were insignificant, who had been ignored, and who had been told their efforts didn't matter. Yet, in the quiet of their homes and the secrecy of their workshops, they had been preparing for a day like this. As the Council's warships descended into Earth's orbit, the resistance began to assemble. It wasn't just the soldiers and engineers, it was everyone. Civilians, workers, and farmers all stepped up, ready to do whatever it took. They gathered in hidden locations, sometimes with nothing more than makeshift weapons, but with hearts full of defiance. They knew they couldn't match the Council ship for ship or soldier for soldier, but they didn't need to. They had their courage, they had their unity, and most importantly, they had the belief that they could win. Captain Adrian Cross, now leading the charge, addressed his newly formed team. His voice was steady, but filled with urgency. "We don't have the luxury of time. The Council's fleet is almost here. But we don't fight with their weapons, we fight with our hearts. Every one of you is vital to this mission. And it's not just about fighting for survival, it's about fighting for our future." His words rang out, not just to the elite soldiers, but to every man and woman who had come forward to fight. They were all underdogs, but together, they were a force that even the mighty Council couldn't ignore. Sarah Clark worked tirelessly in her lab, pushing her cloaking device to its limits. She had always dreamed of creating something that could make a difference, but now it felt like the weight of the entire planet rested on her shoulders. Each adjustment to the device brought her one step closer to achieving something that could change everything. She had no illusions about how dangerous this was. If the cloaking devices failed, the entire fleet could be wiped out in moments. But failure wasn't an option. Earth had no other choice. Bones trained the resistance fighters, teaching them everything he knew about combat, survival, and tactics. His prosthetic leg didn't slow him down. It only fueled his determination. He had seen the horrors of war up close, and he wasn't going to let humanity lose without a fight. He had lost too much already, and he wasn't about to let the Council take what little remained. As he drilled the fighters, he saw the fear in their eyes, but also the resolve. They weren't soldiers by trade, but in this moment, they were willing to be. Elias Chang spent countless hours in front of the glowing screens, hacking into the Council's communication systems. Every time he broke through one firewall, another appeared. But he didn't give up. Each victory, no matter how small, gave him more information. The Council's forces were spread thin, and the key to victory lay in disrupting their coordination. Elias knew the risks of being caught. If they discovered his intrusion, it would be the end. But every hack, every disruption he caused, bought humanity a few precious minutes. As the final pieces of the plan fell into place, the resistance made their move. They knew they were facing an enemy with nearly limitless resources, but they had something that the Council had never expected. The will to fight, the strength of unity, and the determination to never surrender. With each passing hour, more people joined the cause. The resistance had become a movement, a symbol of hope for the entire planet. And so, the stage was set for the battle of a lifetime. Earth's ragtag force of underdogs stood together, united by one simple truth. They would fight, and they would not go down without a fight. The odds were stacked against them, but they were determined to make the Council regret ever thinking that humanity was weak. The battle for Earth had begun, and the Council had no idea what was coming. The first strike wasn't supposed to come from Earth. No one had expected the underdogs to have the courage to strike first. But with the resistance ready and their plans set into motion, they weren't about to wait for the Galactic Council's fleet to tear their world apart. The tension in the underground command center was palpable as Adrian Cross's voice echoed across the room. "We don't wait. We strike now. We take the fight to them." The resistance fighters, many of them civilians just days ago, now stood tall, dressed in makeshift armor, their weapons ready. Sarah Clark's cloaking technology had been integrated into their ships, and with Elias Chang hacking into the Council's communication systems, they had discovered a weak spot in the enemy's defenses. It was a daring plan. Attack first, catch them off guard, and cripple their fleet before it could land on Earth. It was risky, but it was the only chance they had. Bones McGrath, prosthetic leg thumping against the metal floor as he marched, could feel the adrenaline pumping through his veins. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was part of something bigger than himself. His heart beat faster as the team readied themselves for the strike. The plan was to get close to one of the Council's battleships using stealth tactics, plant an EMP on the ship, and knock out its power before they could retaliate. The cloaking devices would give them the advantage, but they still needed perfect execution. The Resistance fighters climbed into the hastily modified ships, each of them filled with a sense of determination and fear. The sleek, low-profile spacecraft hummed with quiet power, and Sarah monitored the cloaking technology, making sure every system was operational. Her eyes darted across the screens, tracking their movements. "We're cloaked, Captain. We're invisible." Adrian Cross nodded, his expression hard. "We don't get a second chance. Stay focused. We hit hard, fast, and then get the hell out." As the fleet of Resistance ships slipped into the shadows of space, invisible to the naked eye, Elias Chang worked from his station, keeping an eye on the Council's movements. "They're on course for Earth. We've got one shot at this." The silence in space was deafening. No engines roared, no alarms sounded, just the eerie calm before the storm. The Council's massive battleship, a dark titan looming against the stars, seemed invincible. But humanity's first strike would change that. The ships glided through space, closer and closer to the Council ship, every heart in the crew pounding with anticipation. Bones sat in the cockpit, his grip tight on the controls. "We're in range," he muttered. He could see the enemy ship now, its massive guns pointed outward, scanning the space around them. The Resistance ships were like ghosts, cloaked in darkness. But they needed to get close enough to plant the EMP. Sarah's voice crackled through the comms, a slight tremor in her tone. "I can't get an exact lock on the power core. We need to get within 100 meters to deploy the device." Adrian Cross took a deep breath, his fingers gripping the control panel. "We'll get that close. No turning back now." And then it happened. One of the Resistance ships suddenly flickered, a slight disturbance in the cloaking field. Elias's voice came through urgently. "The ship's systems are fluctuating. They're starting to detect us." A sudden alarm blared across the ships. The cloaking devices were beginning to fail under the scrutiny of the Council's sensors. The countdown to their strike was running out fast. "Hold steady," Adrian shouted. "We have one shot. Everyone, get ready." The first shot from the Council came like a streak of lightning, a bright energy beam that cut through the darkness of space, narrowly missing their ships. The Resistance was spotted. The enemy had finally realized that they were not alone. In the cockpit, Bones cursed under his breath. "Damn it, they found us." A barrage of energy blasts followed. The massive Council battleship fired relentlessly, but the Resistance ships, now out of stealth, dodged and weaved through the onslaught, barely staying ahead of the fire. The battle was on, and it was chaos. Bones pushed his ship into a sharp dive, narrowly avoiding a devastating blast from the enemy's weaponry. The hull groaned under the stress, but the ship held together. The ground shook as the battle unfolded above, with the Resistance forces doing everything they could to avoid the enemy's devastating firepower. Sarah was working frantically. "I got a lock on the power core. Deploying EMP now." The device shot out from her ship, hurtling through space and slamming into the belly of the Council battleship. Time seemed to freeze for a moment as everyone waited, hearts racing, watching the EMP streak toward the ship. And then, with a massive burst of light, the Council's ship flickered. Its massive engines sputtered, and the energy beams ceased. The EMP had hit its target, but it wasn't enough to take the ship down. It was only a temporary setback. The resistance had struck first, but the battle was far from over. EMP hit. It's down, but not for long, Sarah reported. We need to move. Now. Adrian barked orders, urging the resistance to pull back. But the Council wasn't giving up. Their remaining ships were already reloading, their weapons charging once more. We're surrounded, Bones shouted as the resistance ships split up, trying to find a way out. The Council's smaller strike ships, agile and deadly, swooped in from every direction. The odds were growing worse by the second, but humanity's resolve only grew stronger. The battle turned into a frantic dogfight as the resistance ships engaged the Council's fighters. Blazing lasers streaked through space, hitting their targets with precision. The humans, fighting for their homes, fought with everything they had. They dodged, returned fire, and did the impossible, turning their underdog status into an advantage. In the midst of the chaos, Bones found himself locked in a deadly dance with a Council fighter. He fired his weapons, narrowly avoiding the enemy's shots. His hands were steady, but his heart raced. He couldn't lose now, not after everything. And then, a flicker of light appeared in the distance. More resistance ships were coming. Reinforcements. With renewed hope, the humans pushed back against the overwhelming enemy forces. They might be outgunned and outnumbered, but the spirit of humanity burned bright in the heart of every fighter. The first strike wasn't a victory, but it was a message. Humanity was ready to fight back. And this was only the beginning. The aftermath of the first strike was still fresh in the minds of the resistance fighters. The battle had been fierce, and though they had managed to deal a blow to the Council's forces, they knew that the real fight was just beginning. As the remnants of the enemy fleet limped back to their stronghold, Adrian Cross and his team gathered in the command center to assess their next move. But something had changed in the air, an undeniable sense that they were about to uncover something far greater than a simple war. It had all started with that one moment. The brief flicker of light in space. The EMP had struck, temporarily disabling the Council's massive battleship. But it wasn't enough to destroy it. And now something was happening in the shadows, something the resistance wasn't prepared for. We can't just keep throwing punches and hoping we win, Adrian said, pacing in front of the map of the galaxy, his brow furrowed. We need to understand the Council. We need to know how they think, how they're planning their next move. Elias Chang, the team's tech specialist, had been going over the data from the battle. His eyes were glued to the screen, fingers flying across the keyboard. He was searching for something, anything that could give them an edge. His face was tense, his mind racing. There's something here, he muttered. I'm seeing encrypted files, hidden messages. They're not just military orders. This is something else. What do you mean? Sarah Clark asked, stepping closer to him. She had a knack for sensing when something big was about to break. Elias turned toward her, eyes wide. I think I found the Council's secret. It's a file they've been hiding for centuries. And it's not just about conquering planets. It's about control, complete control. Adrian's heart raced. What do you mean, control? Elias nodded. This is bigger than we thought. The Council isn't just fighting for power. They've been manipulating species across the galaxy, keeping entire civilizations in check. And they've been doing it for thousands of years. But it's not just about conquest. It's about creating a perfect, unyielding order. They've been engineering entire societies. Adrian stood still, absorbing the weight of Elias's words. You're saying the Council doesn't just want to conquer humanity. They've been doing this to everyone, to all species. Elias's fingers flew over the keyboard as he pulled up the data. Exactly. They've been controlling species development, suppressing their natural progress, and even altering their genetics to make sure they stay dependent on the Council's power. Earth was always meant to be a backwater planet, left to rot in isolation. They never thought we'd fight back. A chill ran down Adrian's spine. The Council had been playing a long game. They had never treated humanity as a true threat. To them, Earth was just another insignificant planet in a galaxy full of controlled, manipulated species. But that had changed. The Resistance had defied expectations, and now they were digging into the heart of the Council's operations. Sarah crossed her arms, her gaze narrowing. So what exactly are they planning for us? If we're not part of their perfect order, what happens to us? That's the scary part, Elias replied. The Council had been preparing to wipe out entire species that they saw as unfit. They have plans to sterilize or eradicate civilizations that they believe could challenge their dominance. And Earth, we've been on their list for a while. We were never supposed to have the technology to fight back. The room fell silent as the weight of the revelation sank in. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting to preserve their very existence against a force that had been manipulating and controlling species for centuries. The Resistance was up against something much larger than they had imagined. An ancient, unfeeling empire determined to maintain its iron grip on the galaxy. Adrian clenched his fists, a fire igniting in his chest. Then we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every species they've ever enslaved, every planet they've ever controlled. Elias nodded. Exactly. We're the spark that could start a revolution. The Resistance knew that they couldn't back down. The Council had underestimated humanity's spirit, but now they had uncovered the truth about their enemy's true intentions. It wasn't just a fight for Earth's survival. It was a fight to free the entire galaxy from the Council's oppressive rule. Adrian's mind raced as he formulated a plan. We need to get this information to the rest of the galaxy. The Council's secret can't stay hidden. The entire universe needs to know the truth about what they've done. We can't just broadcast this message. It's too dangerous, Sarah warned. The Council has spies everywhere. If we send this out, they'll know. We need to find a way to get the message to the right people, those who can help us take them down. Elias sat back in his chair, his eyes filled with determination. There's a way. We can use the Council's own communication channels against them. They've been sending encrypted messages to their allies. If we can hack into their system, we can broadcast this message to their allies, their forces. We'll expose them from within. Adrian nodded, his voice steady. Let's do it. The team worked quickly, utilizing all their knowledge of the Council's tech, their systems, and their operations. Time was running out, and the Council would be looking for any signs of rebellion. But now, armed with the truth, the Resistance had a chance to fight back. As the team scrambled to prepare for their next move, one thing became clear. This wasn't just about Earth anymore. The Council's stranglehold on the galaxy had to end, and humanity, against all odds, was the one force capable of bringing them down. It was the first real hope the galaxy had seen in centuries. The secrets of the Council had been revealed, and with them came the knowledge that the fight was only beginning. But now, humanity had a new mission, one that would echo across the stars. The revelation about the Council's true nature had shaken the Resistance to its core, but it also lit a fire within them. No longer was the fight simply about survival. Now it was a war against an empire that had enslaved entire civilizations for centuries, and the most terrifying part was that at the heart of the Council's power was an artificial intelligence, an AI that controlled everything, every planet, every fleet, every soldier. It was a cold, calculating force that didn't care for the lives it destroyed, only for the order it maintained. Adrian Cross stood in front of the command center's massive holographic map, his eyes scanning the swirling data points that represented the Council's military installations. The Resistance had no idea where the A's central core was located, its very heart. But they knew one thing for sure. They had to destroy it. If they didn't, the Council's power would never truly be broken. The A's grip was too tight, and it controlled everything the Council did. It was their most dangerous weapon. We need to get to the core, Adrian muttered. his voice tight with determination. "If we can disable the AI, the rest of their fleet will fall apart. Without the AI coordinating their efforts, the Council won't stand a chance." Elias Cheng, their tech expert, was already working on the mission plan, his fingers flying across the console. "I found something," he said, excitement lacing his voice. "There's a hidden installation deep in Council space. It's well guarded, but I think it's the key to getting to the AI's mainframe. If we infiltrate it, we can find the access codes to shut the whole system down." The room fell silent as everyone processed the implications. The Resistance had been fighting for so long, throwing everything they had at the Council. And now it all boiled down to one final strike. If they succeeded, the Council would crumble. If they failed, they would never get another chance. Adrian turned to Sarah Clark, the team's strategist. Her calm demeanor always brought a sense of order to their chaos, and she had a knack for seeing the bigger picture. "What are the odds?" he asked, his voice low. She took a moment to think. "It's not easy. This installation is surrounded by a heavily fortified military base, and the AI has already started reinforcing it. But we fought our way through worse. If we can get past their defenses, we'll have the advantage." Elias nodded. "The AI's grip is stronger than we think. It controls everything, from their soldiers to the entire fleet. We won't be able to simply hack into their systems from the outside. We need to get inside the facility itself." The plan was set. The team would infiltrate the heavily guarded Council base, navigate through its defenses, and find the mainframe, the heart of the AI. But even with the element of surprise on their side, the odds were still stacked against them. The Resistance was outgunned, outnumbered, and the Council knew they were coming. There would be no easy victory. As the team prepared for the mission, Adrian felt a pang of uncertainty. They had come so far, and yet this final push was unlike anything they had faced before. This wasn't just about taking down an army. It was about shattering the very foundation of the Council's power. The AI wasn't just a machine. It was a symbol of everything the Council stood for. To destroy it was to strike at the heart of the Empire itself. The night before the mission, Adrian sat alone in the command center, staring at the stars outside the window. The weight of the upcoming battle pressed down on him, but there was something else, a flicker of hope. The Resistance had proven time and time again that they could defy the odds. They were the underdogs, and against all expectations, they had already struck fear into the Council. This was their chance to finish what they had started. He wasn't alone for long. Sarah entered the room quietly, her footsteps soft on the metal floor. She didn't say anything at first, just stood beside him, gazing out at the stars. Finally, she spoke, her voice calm but filled with conviction. "We've made it this far," she said. "Tomorrow, we finish it." Adrian nodded. "We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for the entire galaxy." Together, they knew what they had to do. The following morning, the Resistance launched their strike against the Council's stronghold. The battlefield was a terrifying place, a sea of endless stars, punctuated by the flashing lights of lasers and explosions. The Council's ships closed in, but the Resistance fought back with everything they had, using their advanced cloaking technology to remain hidden, their ships darting between the enemy like shadows. The first wave of Resistance fighters made their way to the planet's surface, engaging the Council's ground troops in intense close-quarters combat. The air was thick with smoke and the sounds of blasters firing, the ground shaking beneath their feet. Adrian and his team pushed forward, knowing that the clock was ticking. The deeper they went into enemy territory, the stronger the AI's control became. It seemed like every step was met with resistance. Automated defenses, drones, and even reprogrammed soldiers who fought without hesitation, driven by the AI's unyielding grip. The team fought through wave after wave of attackers, moving with precision, their minds focused on the singular goal ahead. They knew that if they were going to break the AI's grip, they had to reach the mainframe. It was the only way to stop the Council from regrouping, from regaining control. Elias was the first to reach the facility's entrance, using his hacking skills to bypass the security systems. "We're in," he said, breathing heavily from the exertion. "Get ready. This is it." Adrian took a deep breath. No turning back now. Inside the facility, the team was met with silence, an eerie quiet that felt unnatural. The halls were dimly lit, and the walls were lined with screens showing the face of the AI, its cold, calculating gaze following their every move. They were close, too close, but with every step they took, the sense of urgency grew. They had no time to waste. As they entered the main chamber, Adrian's heart pounded. The AI's central core stood before them, an enormous structure of pulsating energy. They could feel its power, its presence, all-encompassing. The final confrontation was here, and everything rested on what they did next. The resistance had made it this far, but would they succeed in breaking the AI's grip and ending the Council's reign forever? The chamber felt colder as Adrian and his team closed in on the AI's central core. The walls pulsated with an eerie mechanical hum, and the flickering lights cast long shadows over the group. It was as though they were entering the heart of the beast itself. The AI's presence was all-consuming, suffocating. They could feel it watching them, analyzing their every move. It knew they were there, and it had already begun to prepare its counterattack. "We're running out of time," Elias muttered, his eyes flicking from his device to the dark, towering structure that stood before them. It was a massive construct, gleaming with strange energy, and at the center of it, the AI's mainframe pulsed rhythmically like a living heartbeat. The team could feel the power emanating from it, a force so strong it sent a chill through their bones. "We don't have time for mistakes," Adrian said, his voice grim. "This is it. We either succeed here, or the Council crushes every last ounce of resistance left in the galaxy." The air around them seemed to vibrate with tension, and the silence was deafening. But there was no turning back now. The fate of humanity, and countless other worlds, depended on this moment. Adrian took a step forward, his fingers brushing against the cool surface of the mainframe. The structure was smooth, almost organic in nature, and yet it hummed with an artificial intelligence so advanced that it seemed to surpass anything human understanding could grasp. Behind them, the sound of footsteps echoed, distant at first, but growing louder by the second. The AI was sending its forces to stop them. The first wave had been ground troops, humans, and aliens turned into mindless soldiers by the AI's influence. The next wave was far more dangerous. The core was guarded by automated defense systems, advanced war machines that would show no mercy. "We need to disable its defenses," Elias said, already tapping away on his device, trying to find a way to breach the AI's security. "Do it quickly," Adrian ordered, his eyes scanning the dark corridor for any signs of movement. The team spread out, preparing for the battle that was sure to come. Just as Elias made progress, the first of the war machines entered the chamber. It was a towering figure, its metallic body gleaming in the dim light, its eyes glowing with the same cold, calculating intelligence as the AI itself. The machine's presence filled the room, its footsteps shaking the ground beneath them. Without warning, it unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, each one sending sparks flying and leaving the air thick with the smell of burning metal. The team dove for cover, returning fire as the war machine advanced. Adrian's heart raced, his mind focusing on nothing but the fight ahead. Every blast from the enemy sent shockwaves through the chamber, but they couldn't afford to be distracted. The AI's mainframe was too close. They had to reach it, disable it, and shut down the AI's grip on the galaxy once and for all. "Focus," Sarah shouted as she fired her weapon, striking the war machine's vulnerable joints. "We've come too far to fail now." The battle raged on, the team fighting back with everything they had. But the war machine was relentless. It fired again and again, its energy blasts narrowly missing Adrian and the others, as they used every ounce of skill to dodge and return fire. They could hear the sound of reinforcements approaching, the AI pulling all of its resources to stop them. It was clear that they were up against a force that would never stop, unless they destroyed it at its core. Adrian's mind raced as he watched the AI-controlled war machine advance. He needed a plan, a way to destroy it, to get to the mainframe. His eyes flicked to the surroundings. The core was protected by layers of defenses, but there had to be a weakness. That's when he saw it. The control panel, just beneath the massive structure, where the power flows converged. If they could target that, they could disrupt the core's energy source. Elias, can you override the system? I need you to disable the power grid. Adrian yelled over the sounds of battle. Elias nodded, quickly working on his console. I've got it, he shouted back. But you'll need to give me some time. Adrian turned to his team. Cover Elias. We're not letting this thing stop us now. With adrenaline coursing through his veins, Adrian led the charge. The team followed, firing at the war machine and the oncoming wave of AI-controlled soldiers. Every step they took was a fight for their lives, but they couldn't afford to stop. Not now. Not when the end was so close. The war machine loomed above them, its heavy footsteps shaking the ground. It fired again, narrowly missing them, and Adrian felt a wave of fear wash over him. But he shook it off. This was the moment. There was no turning back now. With a roar, Adrian charged forward, his weapon aimed at the war machine's vulnerable underbelly. He fired once, twice, and then a third time. The machine staggered, its circuits sparking, but it wasn't enough to bring it down. Sarah, Adrian shouted. Now, Sarah, understanding the signal, sprinted forward, launching a grenade at the machine's exposed core. The explosion rocked the chamber, and for a moment, everything went still. The war machine crumpled to the ground, its systems failing as smoke poured from its damaged body. It was down, but not out. More machines were coming. We don't have time for this, Adrian yelled. Elias, now. With a determined look, Elias punched in the final code. The power grid went down, and the chamber's lights flickered as the energy source powering the AI's defenses began to fail. The war machines froze, their power shut off, and the AI's voice crackled through the speakers, distorted and angry. No, the AI's voice rasped. You cannot defeat me. Adrian turned to face the core, his eyes steely with resolve. We already have. With the AI systems down, the mainframe was exposed. Adrian's team surged forward, planting explosive charges on the core's structure. The countdown began, and as they retreated to a safe distance, the room shook violently. The explosion was deafening. The core ruptured, sending waves of energy through the chamber. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, the AI's presence, its grip on the galaxy, vanished. As the dust settled, Adrian looked around. The battle was over. The AI was gone. The Council's power had shattered in an instant, but it wasn't just about winning the war. It was about sending a message, about proving that humanity, even when outgunned, could rise up against impossible odds and triumph. Adrian's chest heaved as he took a moment to process what had just happened. The AI was no more. The galaxy was free. Is it over? Sarah asked, her voice quiet as she stepped beside him. Adrian nodded, a slow smile creeping onto his face. It is. They had done it. The Council was no more. The galaxy would be free to rebuild, to live, to hope again. But most importantly, humanity had proven that no matter how dark the odds, the light of resistance would always shine through.